Okay.
You want to record a podcast with me?
Recording podcast today.
And where is the intersection between ADHD and OCD? There are some.
There have to be.
Being dang sure.
But I would think it would be more on the impulsive compulsive side of ADHD, which you tend to lean not in that direction.
I know. Isn't that weird?
But okay, here's a question, and let's get Fitz on one day to ruminate on this.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a hyperfixation and a compulsion? Discuss.
That is a good question. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have the answers. So I guess we could come up with some hypotheses and then have science destroy them all.
She destroyed me with science.
She destroyed me with science.
We have a topic today.
We do.
As suggested to us by our friends in the Discord, specifically our friend Tey. What is that topic, Allison? Oh, we haven't done any introductions or anything.
Nah, let's we got to roll dice. We have to say,
boy.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Allison.
Welcome to my podcast.
Welcome to my podcast. I'm so glad you could join me today.
This, of course, is the podcast ADHd20, where we try and find the intersection between ADHD and TTRPGs. It's not like we haven't done that like 27 times already, but here we are. So do you know what today's episode is, Matt? We're in double digits. It's episode 10 of our second season. So I mentioned on the last episode that I just went on vacation with my family. And while on vacation with my family, I mentioned to my brother, whose name is also Evan, that I have, a podcast about ADHD. And he asked how long we've been doing it. And I was like, well, we're in our second season. He said, well, then it's not a podcast about ADHD, because anybody with ADHD wouldn't be able to do 20 something episodes of something. And I said, but it's our hyperfixation.
It is.
And he said, okay, that tracks. So on that note, Matt, I'm about to surprise round you real quick.
Oh boy.
Surprise round. I surprised you. You surprised me.
Give and take a little comosi.
What if every week on ADHd20, at the beginning, we just quickly shared what was our hyperfixation for the week? What was the thing that you hyperfixated on the most this week, Matt? Right?
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah. I'm asking you, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Undoubtedly, it is actually usually editing this podcast. That's a pretty rock solid way to get into hyperfocus. Also, I have been working very hard on my RPG methodology system. So I did definitely have some hyperfixed mornings where it's like, I can fix this. I can do this. I can make it. And I did. But those are my two. Nice. That's enough.
That's enough hyperfixations. I think this week my hyperfixation was definitely Patreon. We decided to give our own darling little Patreon a little glow up this week. And I spent a lot of time in there, and it was a lot of fun.
You did.
And there's a lot more I'm going to do and can do and can't wait to do.
Yes.
Yay. Fun hyperfixations.
That's why part of your dreams and goals for Patreon, we're hoping to have, say, live streams of this where everybody hears all of this nonsense at the beginning and the end and the middle of these podcasts.
That's the best part, is that people think that you and I actually just talk for 30 minutes a week about this and have no idea all that we cut. It's great.
It's like super succinct. Like I have to leave in all of our stuttering just as the example that I have ADHD, and that's my jam, because man alive, We cut out a lot of it. A lot of it.
Well, there's our new segment. We'll see if I remember to ever do it again, or if season 2, episode 10 is the one time we bring it up. But I think it would be interesting week to week to see what our hyper focuses change to, and what's the thing that's just kind of like getting us all hyper and juiced week to week. So thank you for humoring me there. Now let's do the D100 table, and then get on with it. You got your dice ready? Get on with our lives.
Freaking lives, man.
I'm rolling for anybody who cares. Now that this is also in video format, I'm rolling with my Jester dice today. I love them. Jester is my favorite Critical Role character, of course. She's just the cutest, the most unproblematic. And the D20, it's a cupcake. It's a sweet. When you land on the 20, you get a sweet little Jester cupcake, and I just love it. Okay. Anyways, enough of that.
I even know about the cupcake thing.
I have rolled. What did you roll?
A 28.
Wow, this goes right along with the segment we just had. What is your current hyperfixation meal?
I actually have one. Okay, so let me first say I don't usually hyperfocus in that way. I don't hyperfocus about food. Okay. In fact, it is very hard for me to eat the same meal twice in a week, even.
Wow.
Like consecutively. Like I could eat pizza twice or something like that, but they have to be very different pizzas, right?
Okay.
So sure. I know that a lot of people with ADHD don't have that problem, which is also totally cool. I mean, some people just like get on a I'm going to have beans and rice every night kick. I can't do that. However, I really, really love this meal. We've been making it for a while. It's fish, rice, and coleslaw.
Ooh. Interesting.
Delicious. Yeah, it's really good. Like a little slab of the fish can change, but then just rice with a little butter, and then my coleslaw, which is made with Duke's mayonnaise.
Of course it is. I knew it was either made with Duke's or like mayonnaise you made yourself. I would do that, but because my hyperfixation is putting fruit in things. So I bet that would be good if you did like a little like mango or like pineapple to the slaw. I bet that'd be good.
That would be good.
Treat yourself. Treat yourself.
Wonderful. What did you roll?
Well, I'm glad to know you have a hyperfixation meal. There's something we don't normally talk about from you.
I know,
I rolled a 13.
A 13. Allison, what is your alignment IRL?
Oh, I love this question. I think I want it to be chaotic good. It's definitely chaotic. There's no way it's not. But I think lately, because I entered my villain era not too long ago, I think I might be skewing more chaotic neutral in this current iteration of Allison. I'm not apologetic about that either. But yeah, it's definitely chaotic. I'm not a lawful girl, and I don't think I could play a lawful character. Right. So
still in your villain phase, I approve.
Well, I've moved out of my villain era and into my delusional era. But yeah, we're moving. Right. That's right. Yes. I'm just like Taylor Swift and really moving through the eras here lately.
Amazing. Okay. So what are we going to talk about today?
So we polled our lovely audience in Discord this week with our favorite question, what kind of topics do you like? Got some good ones. Got some real good ones. I love everybody's brains, man. I really, really do. And this particular question came from our good friend Tey. I think you might have touched on this a bit already, but how about going in depth on things that made y'all feel welcome to show up as your whole self at a gaming table? Or conversely, what will put your walls up or make it harder to engage? What are best practices for the neurotypicals around you to make gaming table rad for their neurospicy friends?
Ooh.
I love everything about that. I mean, I love the spirit in which Tey asked it, both within the lens of TTRPGs, like what can cause us to just shut down in a game. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had a gaming moment where you just kind of wanted to like Homer Simpson into the bushes?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. I've definitely had that moment as a game master, and it's a little okay. It happened because I felt like all of the players were against me.
Oh, so I think I know the time you're talking about.
It wasn't a happy moment, but I got very upset and angry, and I didn't know what to do about it. I mean, RSD, right? Like, it was a full-on RSD attack that I was feeling, because it wasn't like anybody was doing anything particularly. You were definitely not attacking me, because as we've said many, many times, this game, the beauty of it is that you can be yourself and yet you're not yourself. So why wouldn't that apply to the game master? Well, it should. And yet there was this moment where, I had prepared this thing, and my creature or whatever it was, or the situation, I don't even remember. I've put it out of my mind, but I got very like, oh boy, I want to stop. Just like, I feel so bad. I just kind of went into myself, and it wasn't the best feeling, but it was a real thing. And then, we just discussed it, because that's the kinds of friends that we are. If we weren't the kinds of friends that we are, then that would be a bad situation, right? Like, that could turn you off of playing role-playing games forever. So that's a bad side of this, right? If you're not in a safe space, and there's so many articles online about making your gaming table a safe space, as safe as humanly possible. So many great ideas. This mechanic called the X card, where if something happens, you're not calling someone out. You're just showing a card that says, this makes me uncomfortable. There's, what is it called? Veils?
Lines and veils.
Thank you. Lines and veils. There are lots of systems out there where to make everybody feel comfortable at a table. And that time, any time that I've ever felt weird, I've been able to talk about it and say, hey, I felt weird. How about you?
I know which time you're talking about, and I do remember that, because I knew that we were off kilter. I knew that we were off sync, and that's never a good feeling when you know that you're usually in sync with a group, to feel very like, why is today raining chaos? I'll say this, because obviously we're not here to like talk trash about anybody or anything, but there have been other games, not the ones that I play in with you, but games I played with other group where like there's a member, maybe even two, that like you just don't jive with as a person, right? Yeah. And that's hard. And so there was not too long ago in one of these games, one of the people that personally I just don't jive with rolled up a new character, and it felt very like shoehorned in. It felt like in rolling up this character, and kind of because we were a very close party. The party had been playing together for years. So like we'd been through some shit together. And then suddenly there's this newcomer here, and we were kind of like asking questions to determine if we wanted this character in our party. But suddenly it started to feel personal. Suddenly it felt like it wasn't, our characters asking another character thing. I was like, are we okay? Like, are we, is this the people asking the player things? And that wasn't a good feeling. But again, part of me felt like we were put in that position because this particular player was kind of trying to shoehorn something new in just for the sake of it. And that felt weird. That felt bad. That's the most recent example I can think of.
And we we both started off with negative ones. But I can speak to the positive side of Tay's question, which was, what are things that have made us feel welcome to show up as our whole self? And I would say, personally, it is the role-playing abilities of my group, right? That includes you, of course. It definitely includes my brother Evan, includes our friend Fitz, and includes our friend Matt Williams. Like, the fact that y'all are almost always willing to go for it, to bring in the emotion, to really try to put yourselves into this this character and what the character would say, even if it isn't what you would say, is just so inspiring. It always changes what I am doing and saying. It always does. And when I play with Tey, I can literally see him doing that. So I know it's the same for him. I know it is. I've been in moments where like, that's not what he was going to say. But he is so inspired by what the players are doing. And it's these moments where you feel comfortable shedding tears, or these moments that where a character just kind of breaks down any barriers and really talks real stuff. We don't talk about it all that much, but our friend Matt Williams, he's a dad. He works in family ministry. And to be honest, this is not an insult in any way, but I would not walk down the street and see Matt and go, oh, that's an excellent Dungeons & Dragons player. And man, just some of my favorite moments, the moments that has cemented my love for this game, are things that he has said, both outside and inside, that he just comes up with. It's so real. It's so meaningful. It's so well thought out, and it's so intelligent. And that just, to me, basically, and this goes in real life too. If you're willing and able to sit down with me, even as a perfect stranger, and tell me real things about yourself, I am going to be interested. I've said this before, and I'm going to be there, right there, just like immediately fascinated. So this game already puts you in a position where that's easier to do, and then the players that I play with are phenomenal.
Yeah. I want to yes and so much of that. Matt Williams really is a master at acting as his character. In fact, if you know Matt personally, IRL, and I do not know a kinder, more gentle soul. He is the epitome of a good listener and a good friend to all that he knows, right? And in the game, Matt is a hothead, and I love it. Like, I love it. Yes, he's a fire genasi, and he went off a few weeks ago in session, and I mean, my mouth was on the floor because I wasn't expecting it from his character. So you're so right. Like, when a character gives you something that you're not expecting, and then and for it to be coming from Matt Williams was just the best kind of shock to the system. I'm going to go even further back for my yes and what's the positive of like what gave me permission. I'm going to go back in time to like our first session of D&D when I didn't know jack diddly about how to play. And we've talked about this a lot on recent episodes of how like I knew immediately. And I will credit you, Evan, and Fitz. Because like my wish is that everybody in the world would get to play Dungeons and Dragons with Evan Bivins and Anna Fitzgerald because they are they're so wacky in such a beautiful way. And so it's almost like when you see somebody that level of unhinged, I swear this is a compliment. It gives you permission. When people say like, what advice can you give to newcomers and first-time players or people who haven't played in a while, it's always get a ringer. Get somebody in your group who knows what they're doing and play with them, because no shade to being a newbie. I never felt shade, but I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And if I hadn't had y'all there to show me those ropes and to be weird and wacky and vulnerable and just like hand me that permission slip into the journey of my imagination, we probably wouldn't be here now having this podcast playing every week. And thank you to, our original Dungeon Master, Jeff Milando, for fostering that, because he made it very clear the kind of table that he wanted to run was one that we could go for it, that the focus was going to be on the characters, the game, enjoying our time with each other. And I think Tey does that. You definitely do that, Matt, whether it's a one shot or whether it's going to be a campaign or a mini campaign, to sit down with your players in some kind of a session zero and to get the goals and to say, what kind of player do you want to be? What kind of session do you want to have here? Is this a focus on combat? Is this a focus on role playing? Do you like puzzles? And then something else that you said that can kind of segue into the real life aspect of this and it's something, you know, I've been mulling over for the past couple of weeks. I mentioned on our last episode that I took a family vacation that didn't go well. And I don't want to harp on that, but I've been thinking, you know, you think about these things, right? And you think about like, what could I have done differently and what, and I thought about it honestly through like the lens of my neurospiciness. Especially because I had a conversation with my mom about the fact that my dad has undiagnosed ADHD, and that hinders my relationship with him. It hinders a lot of different things. And she was asking me a similar question to this of like, what can I do? Like, and so I think you kind of touched on it at the beginning where you said like having that conversation outside of the game. So obviously if like tensions are high and we're not speaking the same language in game, having the wherewithal just to say, we're going to get through this. We're going to take a break, and then coming back later and saying like, what could I have done differently? And that was a big piece of advice I gave to my mom, and that I give people with me personally. Like when I get really riled up about something, it is hard to stop that train. So don't try. Like, and I know when I get to that level of anger, emotion, sadness, whatever that peak level is, I know to remove myself. I know myself enough to know that like, I just need to step away and take a breath. And like, please don't push me. But if somebody can come back to me later and say like, okay, what could we have done differently? Like, where did we go wrong? Calmly trying to have that conversation. But a lot of people are so afraid of conflict, I feel like, and maybe this just comes with our age, that they never want to go back and have that conversation because they don't want to reopen that can of worms. And I'm kind of like, if I'm calm, like we can have that conversation. If I'm riled up, we cannot have that conversation. Right.
No, you're really good at that. You're really good at that.
And I think too, one realization that I've had, and I think this is a generational thing. This is not shade at my parents, but rather the people of okay boomer generation is and something that makes you, Matt Williams, Evan, Fitz, Tay, really good D&D players and dungeon masters is why you're listening. Are you listening with the intent to respond? Or are you listening with the intent to understand? And I think you and Tay as dungeon masters do an exemplary job of this where you're listening to us. You're not like, you know, I know it sucks, Matt, when like we tear down your plans, you know, but you prove over and over again. That's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to go off those rails. But like that ability in game or in conversation, if we're talking about real life again, to pivot and say, what did that person just say? And respond to that instead of what you wanted to say, the point you wanted to make. Right. And I think with the people that I never feel heard with are the people that listen with the intent to respond to me, to make their opinion known rather than to hear what I just said. So there's my diatribe there.
I love that. Gosh, that's amazing. And that was probably the lesson that I enjoyed learning the most in improv, my year of improv schooling. It's ironic how many rules and tools there are for improv comedy. They're all like that. They're all like that. I mean, if you come in angry, it's not going to be good. Yeah. If you don't listen to understand and then be able to respond, no matter what you want to say, and you can tell. Yeah. Anyway, that's a huge, huge compliment that you just gave me, and I really, really, really appreciate that because not only as a performer. You know, I'm not an improviser anymore, but I did take that to heart. But then with ADHD, that is a known challenge, which is I have something I want to say. Well, what if the conversation moves, or what if it doesn't really suit for you to say what you wanted to say? Yeah. And you have to let it go. It's it's hard, man. It's hard.
Oh, it sucks.
Thank you. That made me feel good.
But I meant it. I wasn't just, I promise I was not blowing smoke.
I can tell. No, I can tell. I can tell. You started to dive into the second part of his question, which is great. The practices for making a gaming table more rad, in Tay's words, for neurospicy friends. Yeah. And that's a big one. I think that's a big one that can apply to anybody, really, but especially if you know for a fact that somebody has an impulsiveness, for example, just like understand that maybe you might need to have a little more patience. Why are you laughing?
It's me.
And see, this is why we are such dear friends. This is why we're such dear friends. This is why Fitz and you have become such dear friends. Is that you do have that. You do. You have the impulsive side. You do. I can see it. I can literally feel it in you. I can see and feel that. Like, I gotta say what I want to. Like, and sometimes your brain won't. You just can't. You cannot not. Right. You cannot not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we are like, yeah, that's okay. That is okay. We accept you.
Yeah.
Now, this is so funny because I was talking to Lindsay yesterday about this, and just things that people with disabilities might have, traits that people with disabilities might have, mannerisms that would make it impossible for you to be their friend, right? And of course, that's going to be a sliding scale. And you came up. You came up as an example of just someone that I know a challenge for you is impulsiveness. And I said, we just love her. We just love her. That's what it is. I mean, because knowing is half the battle. And there's things that I know that are challenges for me that become challenges for y'all. Probably a lot of it's time blindness, but there's a lot of stuff. There's stuff, but you love me, right? Like that's the thing. So at a gaming table, you just understand. And man, if you are the neurospicy person, within reason, like don't make it all about you, but come in and say, hey, everybody, this is the way my brain works. So if this happens, just don't be surprised. We've said this before, but like, can you put yourself into someone else's shoes? That has got to be the number one skill to learn in your lifetime. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know a better skill. I don't know one that is more important as you age. I don't know one that's more important to have lasting friendships and relationships. I don't know. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it by any stretch, but it seems like every communication issue comes down to that, right?
Yep. And like, the more you're able to do that, first of all, is like to try and say, what are they experiencing right now that is making them act that way? And then the more you're able to recognize how people treat me has very little to do with me and everything to do with them. Yeah. We've talked a little bit, we've skimmed the surface on rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD. I think we could go miles deeper on that one. But I used to care, like, in a debilitating, borderline non-functional way, what people thought of me. Just like waves of tears throughout high school because of people that didn't matter. Like, that was the funny part of it too. It wasn't even like it was my close friends. I would get hung up on like just little one-off comments. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that never was about me. People always see their insecurities on display. So the thing they disliked about themselves is the thing that they're going to pick on. It's basic human nature. But, 14, 15-year-old adolescent brain couldn't parse that and, shouldn't have had to. But the older, wiser version of myself now says, first of all, whatever they're doing, however they're treating me right now is a reflection of how they feel about themselves, not me. And second of all is the like, and what's going on with them? Are they, I joke, I'm not that hard to figure out. If I'm being cranky pants, I probably am hungry. Like, I probably haven't had enough water or enough sleep. And I think a lot of people are like that. I don't think I'm alone in that behavior sometimes.
Yeah.
So
isn't it interesting? Because I know that ever since we started this podcast, I do tend to armchair diagnose everybody that I know 10 times more than I ever did. And I'm not proud of that. But I will say this, going along with what you just said, it really, really is a part of my journey to try to understand other people in their shoes, right? When I run up against people that I have had a very difficult time befriending, and they drive me nuts, or certain things about them I just cannot jive with.
Yeah.
It does help me to try to say, okay, but why? Like, do they have an undiagnosed something?
Yeah.
It's just trying to figure out how we relate to the universe.
Is anyone neurotypical?
We
have
think
doubts.
That's the other thing
Okay.
I think that's the other thing we're going to discover. There is no such thing.
Nobody.
That's fine.
Exactly.
I like it.
But, I think that you touched on something really beautiful, though, Matt, that, like, as I'm thinking through this, I think that you guys, all credit to you for creating an environment that both modeled good behavior. Yes, I have ADHD, but I can get stuff done, or whatever the case is, and that I'm gonna love them through it. Because when you put somebody, especially somebody who is neurospicy, especially somebody who is prone to RSD and to just kind of, I used to just make mountains out of molehills. People would not mean anything by the thing they would say, and somehow I would turn it into this big dramatic, oh, so you hate everything about me and you don't want anything to do with me, and because they said, like, hey, can you, I have a headache. Yeah. Can you keep it down? Or whatever the case might be. But, like, in those situations, I wasn't being loved through it. I wasn't being met where I was. I wasn't, these people were listening with the intent to respond and react instead of understand. And so to kind of go back to the original question of like, how can we help make people feel comfortable at a table, meet them where they are, see them as they are, honor that. And then, and I think I get this both as a neurospicy type and the newest, in our little microcosm, at least newest to the D&D community. I remember what it was like to be the new kid. So I'm constantly trying to find ways to make the other new kids, one of the things that we've rolled out is we want to start doing these one shots. And I am screaming from mountaintops because I've had so many people say, I want to play, but I don't have a way. Like, I don't have an interested party or things like that. Yeah. Or, then people who are like, oh, but I'm so intimidated. I'm not a good actor. I'm not a good performer. I don't, just trying to meet those people where they are and say, okay, but what questions do you have? Like, how can we bridge this gap? How can I take you by the hand? Because remember, that's what I need. Remember, I don't like to walk into new rooms by myself. That's where my friends are always going to have to usher me through that. So I try and be that kind soul in return, to be like, I will meet you at the door of the proverbial dungeon where we will go play.
Yeah, it's with a welcome sign.
and I will walk you in. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, and a halberd. And I will walk you. That's all. I think that's all we need, man. Somebody to meet us at the door and walk us inside.
Yeah. Yes, there is an absolute fact for anything that has anything to do with accessibility or inclusion in the world. There is one rule that kind of tops everything, and that is do not be afraid to ask questions. And that is the symbolic reaching out a hand. And I understand this too. I get it, but some people are so terrified to ask questions. Especially of Lindsay, who's, profoundly deaf. I get that even more, but even me, like, just ask, don't. Chances are, unless you're outright trying to be insulting, there isn't anything that you can do to insult if you just ask the question. There really isn't. So, so that's a game table, or that's a restaurant or a theater or any damn place, man. Just ask.
We should just like make buttons. I'm neurospicy. Ask me, and just let the whole world.
That's a t-shirt. Ask me why. Ask me why. I'm neurospicy. Ask me why. That would be amazing. I want that so bad now. I love this. This is good. I hope that this answered Tay's question. He knew the answer to it already, but I love talking about this.
Yes, thank you, Tay, for an excellent question. I always like the questions that straddle, ADHD and D&D so perfectly, and this one hit it out of the park, Sir Tay.
I love that. I love the ones that straddle D&D, ADHD, and then outside of D&D at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like this one. You could, yes, you could definitely replace gaming table with taking someone home to your parents for Thanksgiving.
Yes, for Thanksgiving specifically.
Yeah, unless you boycott Thanksgiving, like me. Christmas, Hanukkah, all of the holiday, any holiday.
President's Day, Memorial Day,
Memorial Day,
Indigenous Peoples Day. Now we're just naming holidays. Yes. It's time to end the episode.
Exactly. There it is. What's your usual sign off? Oh, we just start naming holidays. Wow, that's interesting.
I have been thinking hard about we do need a sign off or a catchphrase, and our friend Jacqueline Havington came up with a really great one.
Yeah,
Neurospice and rolling dice.
Let's test it out. Thanks, Allison, for joining me on your podcast.
Matt, thank you for having me on your podcast.
And thanks everybody for listening. And don't forget. Oh yeah. And thanks everybody out there for listening. And don't forget. I can't do it. You do it. You can do it better. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to our podcast about Neurospice and rolling dice. Ciao!
It's always
there. In a world where you can be anything, be Neurospice and rolling dice. Anytime you could in a world something.
I'd rather be
Neurospice and rolling dice. Oh. We'll keep workshopping, but I think we're onto something here.
Yeah, we got to work on it, but yeah, it'll be there. Okay. Awesome.
Live, laugh, love, Neurospice and rolling dice. Okay, I'll stop.
Love it, believe it. Thank you for listening and being a part of our ADHd20 family. If you're looking for more, we'd love to see you in our public Discord server. Look for the link in our show notes and come join the chatter about all things TTRPG and ADHD, but also TV, music, really pretty much anything on our minds.
We also have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content and outtakes, be the first to hear new episodes, join us for live streamed recording sessions, and even play Dungeons and Dragons with us and our friends.
The best way you can help us, though, is just to share this podcast with people you think will like it.
Thank you for being a pal to us as people, to ADHd20 the podcast, and to the greater Bivins Brothers Creative Commonwealth of Nerds.